Genetics may load the gun, but the environment and the visual behaviour of the child is what pulls the trigger. So you've got to have some genetic drivers to put you at risk, but I've seen myopic children that both parents are not myopic too. So the environment plays, I think, probably as much of an influence for a lot of children than what their parents are. But if we look at what those environmental triggers are, the ones that the behaviours with the kids, we're seeing that more frequently. So we're finding kids are choosing behaviours or being educated in such a way that it increases the risk. And I think that combined with some genetic history then makes it a fairly interesting cocktail.
If you're a parent, you've probably noticed that more children seem to be wearing glasses than ever before. Many parents assume that short-sightedness is simply inherited and that stronger glasses are an unavoidable part of growing up. But what many people don't realize is that modern optometry has moved well beyond simply updating a prescription every year. Today, there are glasses, contact lenses, and even overnight treatments designed specifically to slow down the progression of myopia in children. So how much of myopia is genetic, and how much is influenced by a child's environment? And what options are available for families who want to protect their child's long-term eye health? That's exactly what we'll be discussing today. I am pleased once again to be speaking with Martin Robinson, experienced optometrist and owner of Martin's Eyecare in Tasmania, where he and his team work closely with children and families to manage myopia and reduce the risk of future vision complications. Over the next 30 minutes or so, we'll discuss the causes of myopia, the latest treatment options, and why many parents are surprised to learn that doing nothing is not an option. But first, who am I? My name's Paul Salloway. I'm the owner of Optics Digital Marketing. We're an agency that helps independent optometrists to connect with their communities through educational videos such as this one. So, hi, Martin. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, good to see you again, mate.
So, Martin, when parents discover that their child is becoming short-sighted, one of the first questions they might ask is whether it's inherited. So how much of myopia is driven by genetics and how much of it is influenced by the child's environment?
It's a complicated answer because it's a multifactorial effect or influence. And I guess we know that if we have one parent that's myopic, that has a certain risk profile for the child. If we have two parents that are, that both parents are myopic, that's a higher risk profile for the child. So if I can give you an analogy as to how to process that bit of information, genetics may load the gun, but the environment and the visual behaviour of the child is what pulls the trigger. So you've got to have some genetic drivers to put you at risk, but I've seen myopic children that both parents are not myopic too. So the environment plays, I think, probably as much of an influence for a lot of children than what their parents are. But if we look at what those environmental triggers are, the ones that the behaviours with the kids, we're seeing that more frequently. So we're finding kids are choosing behaviours or being educated in such a way that it increases the risk. And I think that combined with some genetic history then makes it a fairly interesting cocktail. And Tassie's a little different to the mainland because we don't have quite the density of myopia and not quite the number of people that are myopic as what some of the mainland states are dealing with, which is effectively an epidemic for them. We're a little bit insulated from it. We've got our myopic patients and we've got our children that are progressing, but not the same numbers that I hear from my colleagues in other states.
So how much of an influence does time spent outdoors play in the progression of myopia? Because I'm imagining that Tasmania is a very sort of outdoorsy kind of state, so maybe that's part of the answer there.
I think it's part of the answer, but it's not the only answer. But being outdoors is important because it gives the eye a variety of inputs and information. If I sit and read a book, I'm getting lots of information from the pages of the book, but I'm sitting still, which means most of my eye is being deprived of detail because I'm not moving. So we're sitting in a room with static walls, static couches, static backgrounds, and when we're outside, we're not normally sitting still ever. We're outside, we're walking, we're moving, we're doing things. And that gives our eyes a constantly evolving kaleidoscope of colours and patterns and detail. And I guess the analogy for parents to really grapple to is Why do we hang mobiles over change tables? We hang mobiles over change tables to give attention and detail to the child. And when we're outside, then we've got all of that attention and detail that's subconsciously being delivered to the child. We preach a mantle of green time over screen time for that reason.
Right.
So more outdoor time, less staring at a screen, staring at a book time.
So people have been reading text on the page for thousands of years. So, but what's suddenly different now about digital screens? And are you seeing anything now that maybe you didn't see so much 20 years ago?
I see as much myopia progression with book readers because I've got communities in Tassie that are anti-technology. They don't use tablets for children. They don't have phones for children. They don't use laptops or computers for children. So once kids get to 18, they can do that sort of stuff. But under 18, they're kept technology free effectively. Now that's an interesting concept for modern day, and nearly every one of those children is myopic.
Wow.
If some of their parents are, some aren't, but nearly every child is. And it's really interesting because what do they do if they don't have that other entertainment? Because they don't have TV, they don't have other things. They're reading. They read books copiously, and it's what I think is what we're dealing with when we're talking about phones being causative for myopia. It's not the phone per se. It's how many hours a day we're spending on the phone and our lethargy when we're using phones because we're sitting still, we're stationary, we're not moving, we're not giving ourselves enough detailed visual information.
And digital devices are kind of engineered to be addictive, aren't they? Which is probably one of the reasons why the amount of time spent in this near work has just gone up so much.
Yeah, I think it's not the devices so much. It's the social media platforms that are really addictive, and they are engineered to hold and keep your attention and not let it go. The rise of short videos and the rise of clips and reels. That's all driven by quick data absorption. So and short attention spans as well. So they're trying to give people lots of stuff to keep them scrolling, to keep them looking, and how many? What's the term? Doom scrolling. So people my generation are saying, yeah, but you're doom scrolling because you're just dead to the world. You're ignoring your partner. You're ignoring your children, and you're just scrolling on social media. That's that pathway, and it lights up the same parts of the brain that drugs do. So it's certainly an addictive pathway.
So I know, Martin, you produce some short form videos as well. So
I know.
So I encourage anyone to watch, if is out there who likes short form videos, please watch Martin's content. It's high quality. So Martin, some parents might wonder then, so why they should worry about myopia progression at all? Because if glasses can correct vision, why does it matter whether a child ends up mildly short-sighted or highly short-sighted? They might be thinking, well, I wear glasses. What does it matter if my kid ends up wearing glasses?
The way to think of this is, how do we try and bring our children up? We try and bring them up to be better than we were, to not make the mistakes that we made, so that they are given the right tools to lead a healthy life. And sometimes that means making them eat their vegetables, and sometimes that means making them do their homework. With eyes, part of the good homework and the good behaviour with eyes is prevention of harm. And we know that reducing long-term risk is helpful, and it's beneficial for the parent because you don't have to spend as much money on glasses and thicker lenses and things like that for your children while they're in your care. But it's also for that child for the rest of their life. If they develop severe myopia, like I've worn glasses since I was 8. I'm in my 50s, so I've worn them for over 40 years, all day, every day, or I've worn contact lenses. And that's a lifetime expense. And it's better for me because I'm in the industry, so I don't pay for my glasses. It comes as part of the perk. But if you're a person that has to pay for it, it's a big factor. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if we get a higher prescription, if we develop myopia unchecked and it gets worse and worse over time, which is what it tends to do, that's what myopic progression is all about, then the risks of all these complications come to light. And you don't have to be very myopic for these risks to occur. And that can be things along the lines of retinal detachment. I was chatting to Jin, my new optometrist, just the other day, and we were saying, look, and I told her about a mutual patient, and we were chatting about that patient and said, look, that lady's husband had a retinal detachment after a fairly bouncy ride in India, and he developed tears in the retina, and that was no symptoms before the tuk-tuk ride, and it was like a tour around Delhi, so it was just rough roads, and he was quite a tall chap, and he kept bouncing his head on the top bars of the auto rickshaw sort of thing, and we had a chat about what was the risk, was he really myopic, and the answer is no, he was only moderately myopic, and yet he had this significant detachment problem where there were lots of little tears appeared in the eye from just a holiday, and he got that fixed not in India, though he did a look at it there. He didn't get it fixed in Hong Kong, but he looked at it there. He got it fixed getting back to Australia. So it goes to show that even someone with my moderate prescription, I've got a risk of retinal detachment, and that's just one of the complications. The other complications are macular swelling and macular disease. We can get macular splitting. We can get macular edema, which is the macular swelling, as I said. All of those things are sight destroying or risk of a permanent vision loss. And even if you recover from them or you get surgery to fix them, your eyes are never the same as they were before the incident. And as such, then you've got to live with a compromised or a changed visual system for the rest of your life. And if that happens when you're 50, then you've got another 40 or 50 years to deal with something that's not quite right. Sometimes it happens when someone's 70 and you might say, oh, well, they're old. But if it happens when you're older and it goes wrong, then your quality of aged care life is really impaired and your stability on your feet is impaired already because you're getting a bit older. And then you can't see properly out of one eye because you had a myopic event that lost vision or lost quality of vision, and your trip risk increases and your fall risk increases. So this is lifelong problems we're dealing with. So why wouldn't we want to try and protect our children from a lifelong pathway of impairment, for want of a better term?
And glaucoma is another thing, isn't it? That
it is.
like myopia increases the risk profile for people who have glaucoma, and glaucoma is another eye disease that has some sort of genetic risk factors associated with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a high risk glaucoma patient myself. Okay, so I've got a lot of markers that are risk factors for glaucoma. Myopia is one of them. I've also got Raynaud's syndrome, which is a blood vessel disorder with my fingers, and I've got some family history, and I've got some interesting eyes and interesting pressures, and I'm a steroid responder. So there's lots of factors, but myopia is another one of those factors. So yes, absolutely. Glaucoma is an insidious disease because you don't even know you've got it.
Yeah.
That's why you've got to go and have regular checkups. It's one of the silent diseases. How could you have a disease and not know you've got it? That's the definition of glaucoma, because you're not aware of it because it happens so slowly and so benignly that you don't realize until you've lost most of your sight.
As humans, unfortunately, we're not good at making or not good at short-term discipline for long-term benefits, whether that's exercise or diet, and I guess screen time and monitoring, myopia progression, that's another one that falls into that category. But definitely, I think there are long-term implications we need to be aware of.
And it has to be met with some level of reality with the parents, because not every parent's got a lot of money, and some of these myopia fixing things are on the expensive end of the spectrum. But that's why we've got a spectrum of products available, and we've got things that are entry point and cheaper and affordable, and maybe not quite the evidence behind them, but they're copying the technology of the good stuff, so that we've got things that at least give us an affordable option for patients that have got limited finances or under stress.
Well, that's an excellent segue to my next question. But before we get there, if you're watching this on YouTube and you're finding this discussion helpful so far, then please do us a big favor and hit the like button, because it helps us out with the YouTube algorithm and increases the chances that other parents will discover this information as well. So you mentioned that there are options available. So many parents might be surprised to learn that there are glasses and contact lenses that are specifically designed to slow down myopia progression. So could you explain what these are and how they might work?
Absolutely. If we go back and look at some of the myths around myopia, if you like, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were prescribing low power multifocal, like anti-fatigue glasses, because we were told that was helpful and slowed down myopia. It doesn't. It's not helpful. So we don't do that anymore. We don't recommend that anymore. But that's something that we had done for a long time because we were told that was a better way to go about it. If we go beyond that and we look at what's currently available, there's really good solid evidence behind it. So if we look at some of the myopia control spectacle lenses, they use a special peripheral defocus pattern of lens manufacturing, which has come about through CNC cutting machines and computers designing lenses, and not only designing lenses, but manufacturing lenses as well. So these sort of work production lines are just amazing stuff, and we've got them in Australia. And those lenses, there's a range of them. There's various companies have got their own brands. So we've got ones from Essilor, and we've got ones from Hoyer, and ones from Rodenstock. Each one's got its own level of studies showing how they're proof, and each one's have got their own level of evidence behind them. And some of them are gold standard. They've got evidence that shows that they're almost or equally effective to all the other options available because they've done long-term studies. Other products are newer on the market and they don't have those long-term studies because they haven't been around for as long. But they're copying in a very similar way some of the other products. So I think what we've got is a spectrum of lenses that work. Some are gold standard, and they've got some really rigorous evidence behind them, and they're what we would go as our gold standard. But I've got a couple of backups for people that are just financially bits beyond their means, in which case, well, we don't want to deny them care. So I try and do something that's maybe not got quite as deep an evidence, but we do them and we watch them more closely. If we go outside of the spectacle lenses, there are contact lenses, and they've been around for a long time. We've been using them for a long time, and they've been much more effective. I mean, there's soft contact lenses like MySight from Cooper Vision, and they're amazing lenses. They're really, really good. And we've been using them for a long time, and there's good evidence behind them. They've changed the materials recently to try and make them healthier and more a better feel for the eye. And there's new types of lenses coming from Johnson & Johnson called Ability. And Ability have got some quite powerful myopia controlling technology built into them using a very unusual sort of shape of a contact lens, which is radical because it's nothing like a MySight. And that's really interesting because they come in a couple of different shapes and a different curve. So if you've got little children with myopia, it's a really good match for them because it's a little bit tighter, it's a bit neater, so it's a better fit for little tiny eyes. And we've been getting some really good results from that with some of our younger myopes that we've started into myopia control. And if we go beyond that again, there are drug options. So there's things like atropine, low dose atropine. Atropine's a drug that changes your pupil size. And ultra low dose treatment options are what's in vogue for treating myopia. But that also means you're introducing a medication and a chemical into your child's eye every day for maybe a decade, 2 decades of life. And what are the long-term implications of that? And the answers are that we've got reasonable long-term data, but no long-term drug use is suitable and is safe for every single person because each drug affects a person in a different way. So I think we're going to see some more evidence of that coming out over time. So it's just something that's in the back of my mind as being, if I'm starting someone on something and I'm going to be introducing a chemical into someone's eye every day for a long time. We talked about habits before. How easy is that habit to break and forget the eye drops and not use them? If you wake up and you put your glasses on, that's one thing. If you wake up and put your contact lenses on, that's one thing. But you've got to remember these eye drops as well. The next interesting thing is low-level light therapy and red light treatment. And I don't have that in my practice. I know about it. It has some interesting data behind it showing, and it's getting some major traction at the moment. Red light therapy is considered to be quite in vogue, and lots of people are claiming all sorts of magical things from it. And the evidence behind the red light for myopia is reasonably solid. There are some cautions that have been mentioned, and some of the cautions are there is a rebound effect if you stop the red light therapy. So again, committing to that therapy is a long-term commitment. And if you use it for a while and then you stop using it because you got bored with it or what have you, or maybe your machine breaks and you're not using it, the risk is then you rebound and you become much more myopic really quickly. So that's a slight concern for that treatment pathway. But it's non-invasive treatment, so it's good from that point of view. The risk with repetitive exposure to light is the same with everything that's a light-based therapy. There need to be power level controls and various energy level controls to reduce that risk. But regular small doses of red light are quite effective. The next one to talk about is orthokeratology, which we've talked about here before. And orthokeratology is a reshaping lens that we wear while we sleep. Traditionally, it's been used to try and reshape your eyes so that you are, that you get a better distance eye, you get a better near eye. And I had a lady in today that's older than me, and she wears one Ortho-K lens in one eye to improve her distance vision. And the other eye is naturally myopic, so that's one benefit of being a little bit short-sighted from her childhood. And she can read with one eye and she can see distance with the other eye. And she's happy with that. And she's been doing that for 20 years. So really, really, really solid. And we're tweaking her contact lens today to try and make it better. But from a myopia control point of view, then it's about trying to massage the eye into a shape that you can see without glasses and without contact lenses. So just the reshaping alone. And we know that that's protective against myopia progression. But every one of those treatment options need to be monitored. And we measure axial length to monitor the growth of the eye, because that's considered gold standard in terms of monitoring growth. So the glasses can still progress. The soft contact lenses, you can still progress and get worse. The atropine, you can still progress. The red light, you can still progress. And the Ortho-K, you can still progress as well. So if one treatment's not working because you're progressing even under that treatment, we can always change to a different treatment and see if that's going to be more efficacious for that particular child.
Okay, I'd like to talk a little bit more about orthokeratology or Ortho-K in particular. So which children tend to be the best candidates for Ortho-K treatment?
Lower astigmatism levels in particular. So if we get too much astigmatism, it's more challenging to fit an Ortho-K lens and get a good result. And kids that are mildly myopic, not massively myopic. So we struggle if we're getting up to, we can't do a -5 or a -6. That's outside the realm of Ortho-K. But if we're talking about the early kids, that's why they're so useful for Ortho-K. If they've just developed a little bit of myopia and they're 0.5 or 1 or 1.5 or 2, that's ideal. That's a perfect range.
Do parents have any common concerns about Ortho-K that you hear from them? And if so, how do you address them?
Yeah, there's concerns about all of them. Like each one of those options that I've talked about, parents are a little worried about it. And Ortho-K is no different in that regard. I think the parents are happy in some ways with Ortho-K because they've got control of putting that child to bed, and it's part of the bedroom routine. So
Yep.
they okay, we've time to brush our teeth, time to go to the toilet, time to get changed, time to put our orthokeratology lenses in our eyes. So, and that's an attractive option to parents. The concern is what are the safety protocols, and we go through those with every contact lens. There's safety protocols as well,
Yep.
but they're also happier from a risk of loss or damage that they don't have it because those contact lenses stay with them at home and they're taken out in the morning and mum helps dad take them out or dad takes them out and they stay at home. So if we look at what's likely to happen in a child's life is they might get a ball to the face and break their glasses. They might go to a sporting event and leave their glasses behind, or they might take their contact lenses out to go swimming and then they lose their contact lenses. All of those things are loss risks, which then have an extra cost for parents, but or nearly all of them happen outside the home where the parents have less control over it. And it's up to your children. And some children are really trustworthy and some children are not quite so trustworthy. And if you're a parent, you know which is your trustworthy child and which is your less trustworthy child.
So you mentioned MySight contact lenses, and
Yes,
maybe there are some other brands that are similar to that. So I'd like you just to compare and contrast then the MySight lenses versus Ortho-K lenses, because I think MySight lenses are soft contacts, aren't they? And
yes,
maybe they're disposables, whereas
they are.
Ortho-K is a rigid
Or,
contact lens
yes.
which requires cleaning. And so is that sort of the main difference between them?
Yeah, in terms of efficiency of myopia control, they're very similar. There's not much difference. There are some people that will say that one's slightly better than the other, but the studies are fairly solid across the board. So I don't have a concern of saying, look, one's far, far better than the other. They're both very similar. Soft contact lenses and disposable soft contact lenses are exactly right. They're disposable. They're easy to use. They have a slightly higher impact on the environment, and parents are starting to ask questions about that. So you end up with more plastic waste from them. And with soft plastic collection agencies and things, they're not working anymore. So where we used to donate soft plastics to, which you could donate contact lenses to, that's not really in place anymore. Some of the companies have got their own contact lens recycling systems in place, which is great. But many companies are going to the point where they're no longer recycling their own contact lenses, but they're putting energy and efforts into recycling plastics from the world environment. So for every kilo of plastic they produce, they're taking it out of the environment. So that's one element. But hygiene wise, if you have dirty hands when you put in a MySight soft disposable contact lens, then you could get an infection from that, but the risk is low. That's why we always talk about clean hands before we handle contact lenses. Taking a contact lens out, if you don't wash your hands properly, you can get an infection from having a dirty finger getting your contact lens out. Same reason we've talked to kids about washing their hands. But again, parents are involved in that. They're often helping getting their kids ready for school. So they're there making sure that they're doing the right behaviour and washing their hands and putting their lenses in and taking them out. And through the day, is there any higher risk with that? And the answer is the studies show there's no difference in risk from not wearing a contact lens or wearing a daily disposable contact lens. So it's really comparable. So it's safe. If you can keep clean hands, you're a safe person with them. With the hard lenses as well, there's risks with discomfort if the lenses aren't cleaned properly. So because they're a repeat use lens, that's their benefit because there's less environmental degradation from those lenses because they're manufactured and that lens would last you for a year or sometimes longer. And that's really important. And with the orthokeratology lenses, you've got slightly higher care products. So you've got products to clean your contact lenses. You've got products to store your contact lenses in during the day while you're at work or at school. And you've got special protein treatments that get done frequently as well. So each one of those has a cost factor, I suppose. But the hygiene behind using those ones, there are gold standard disinfection protocols for hard lenses. And we get far fewer corneal problems from hard lens wearers, even orthokeratology, than we do from soft lens wearers. So the highest risk group out there is extended wear soft lenses, which are lenses that you put in and leave in for days or weeks or months at a time. Those are the highest risk patients. Other daily disposable contact lenses, the risk is almost nil. The risk of the RGP lenses, like the orthokeratology ones, is almost nil.
So how about for patients who might have an irregular cornea, like they have some level of astigmatism? You said that there are some limitations for
Yeah.
using Ortho-K with those patients. How about the daily disposable MySights? Are they suitable for astigmatic patients?
No, the other myopia control ones are not suitable for astigmatic patients.
Mm.
They mask a little bit of astigmatism, so low levels of astigmatism you can still use your soft
Right.
lenses, but higher levels no. So then we're stuck.
Mm.
So if you've got, and that's my problem because my eyes, I'm myopic, but I also have astigmatism of equal amounts. So for me, even if I had have had this technology when I was younger, I wouldn't have been able to use it.
Right.
But I can have my prescription in a myopia control and a spectacle lens.
Right. Okay.
So now we've got options that would have worked for me when I was younger.
Mm.
So those are the things that sometimes dictate us in terms of don't have all of these options available for every child because some children have got specific prescriptions or eye shapes or what have you that say that one's off the table now because we can't fit your prescription with that treatment plan.
Okay, so we've talked about myopia control spectacles. We've talked about soft contact lenses. We talked about Ortho-K overnight lenses. You mentioned atropine drops and even red light therapy. So from what I understand, many optometrists sometimes use a combination of these things. Like
Yep.
they might use drops or red light therapy or something else in combination with other strategies. So what situations would you take that kind of approach of using a combination treatment?
There's two ways to think of it. One is to think about some parents want every trigger pulled, every control controlled, in which case they want more. And some parents are very proactive about it, and they come in asking for multiple therapies at the same time. And those patients, we monitor them and we do multiple therapies at the same time. The second way to think of it is we introduce a second line of therapy if the first line of therapy is not controlling the growth or the progression as well as we would hope. I mentioned before, sometimes we would change therapy and change from one product to another product. If it's just moving a little bit, sometimes we add something else to it. So we've got a few patients that we're progressing even with MySight, and we've added in atropine as well. I've had some other ones that we've had progressing even with Ortho-K, and we've added a little bit of atropine in as well. So,
and how would you monitor whether your plan is working with the child? Like how do you actually tell if the strategies are being effective?
the two ways to tell is one is if their prescription is stable or progressing, is their vision getting worse, are their numbers changing? But the gold standard, as I mentioned before, is axial length measurement. So if we measure the axial length of children, it's that measurement which is a direct correlation to myopia risk and myopia progression. So how long the eye is from front to very back. And we've got a very high quality axial length measure as part of our Pentacam device, and we've got with our myopia control children, we just do an axial length measurement. We don't do a full workup on the Pentacam because the Pentacam can do lots of things, because that's how we monitor our orthokeratology patients and start them on the process. That's how we fit specialty contact lenses, is by scanning the corneas with a detailed scan with the Pentacam as well. But no, the axial length measurement is a simple, very quick test that we do with that device. We've also got an axial length measurement on our OCT device, but we're finding the Pentacam is probably more accurate and more repeatable.
Well, Martin, so once again, as per usual, really informative discussion with you today. So for parents who've recently discovered that their child is becoming short-sighted, what would you recommend to them as the first step?
The first step is to get their children's eyes examined. It really is. And and when the optometrist sees them, whether it's me or someone else, it doesn't matter. Make sure that you ask them what are our treatment options, what are our myopia prevention options. And I would think nearly every optometrist or every optometrist should be giving advice about what options are available. The thing to be aware of is not every option will be available at every practice. So as I said to you before, I don't have any red light therapy devices in my practice. I don't use that in my practice. So that's one example of something that I don't participate in. I'm happy to give you advice. I don't have to refer you to someone that does have it. But other places may do soft contact lenses like MySight or Ability, but they won't do orthokeratology. So that's the thing to think about. And if you decide that's the way you want to go, you can ask for a referral from your practitioner to someone that does do your chosen modality.
Okay, well, if anyone in Tasmania would like to learn more about myopia management or organise an assessment for their child, you can contact the team at Martin's Eyecare in Glenorchy. So how do they do that, Martin?
They can get in touch with us just by phone, so they can give us a call and make an appointment. They can use their Hot Docs app and they can book an appointment that way. If you don't have a Hot Docs app, you can find Hot Docs links on our website, which is martinseyecare.com.au. So all of those are ways that we can have patients make appointments. You can get referred to us by your GP, but it's not essential. You can get referred to us by your other optometrist, but it's not essential. But all of those things are real options.
And once again, if you found this discussion helpful, then please like the video, subscribe to the channel so you're notified when Martin releases more helpful content like this one, and follow Martin's Eyecare on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date with the latest announcements and eyecare tips. So thanks again for your time today, Martin.
Thank you very much, Matt. No worries.
Okay. Thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah.
Have a great day.